I'm Will Gaylord with LTMB. There's been some big headlines in the news today. Let's start with Laquan McDonald. So the long-awaited murder trial of Officer Jason Van Dyke regarding the fatal shooting of Laquan McDonald back in 2014 finally started late last month. And today we finally got to a jury verdict, and that jury verdict is guilty. Guilty. Officer Jason Van Dyke was found guilty of second-degree murder. It's absolutely wonderful news. This is something that many people have been eagerly anticipating. This has been going on for about 4 years, where people wanted justice. And like I said, we finally got a guilty verdict, second-degree murder. Now, he had been charged with first-degree murder. And to be honest, I never thought that was likely. That was going to be a pretty high bar to actually overcome, because I believe you would have had to prove premeditation, and like I said, that would have been pretty difficult. Second degree murder, like I said, I'm very happy with that outcome. Along with the second degree murder charge, he was also found guilty of 16 counts of aggravated battery, and that's 16 counts that stands for the 16 shots that he fired at Laquan McDonald. So again, I'm thoroughly satisfied with the verdict. Laquan McDonald is not coming back, and I think we all understand that. And for this day, I can only imagine that it's bittersweet for those that were closest to him, his family, his friends, his community. But I hope that with this verdict, it comforts them just a little bit, just realizing that Van Dyke is going to pay for his crime. So as I have stated before, this is just one step along the way of accountability. So the next step, and that final step, that's going to be sentencing. So with these charges that he was found guilty of, he can spend the rest of his life in prison. And I'm definitely in support of that. The way in which he murdered Laquan McDonald, the way in which he showed absolutely no regard for Laquan McDonald's life, I don't believe Officer Jason Van Dyke deserves any type of sympathy. I don't think he deserves any type of leniency. I don't think he deserves another shot at walking free ever again. That's the way I feel. So again, that's the next phase, in this trial, the sentencing, and that should begin shortly. His bail was revoked, so he was taken into custody. Again, like I said, far too often we don't even get to this point to where an officer is actually even arrested and charged for murder. This just doesn't happen that often. So I've stated before that there are several steps along the way to reaching, justice. First, that officer has to be, he has to be charged, maybe even arrested by the, the precinct, some police department. The prosecutor has to believe in the charges. They have to say, hey, there's enough here to, warrant these charges. I'm going to present these to a grand jury. The grand jury has to sign off on them and say, yeah, there's probable cause here. Then we get to a jury trial. The jury then, a jury of the individual's peers, has to say, yes, there's enough probable cause here. We believe within beyond a reasonable doubt that this individual is guilty. And then you have to make it all the way to sentencing. And if it even gets to that point, which, like I said, is not common, if it gets to that point, a lot of times it is, a slap on the wrist. So in this particular case, I really do hope that Officer Jason Van Dyke gets a very, very lengthy sentence. And like I said, I'm an advocate for him spending the rest of his life in jail, or in prison, as I should say. So again, it's a bittersweet moment. I'm glad that it looks like justice is on the way. But I can't go without naming a few other individuals. Former Cook County prosecutor Anita Alvarez, and also the current mayor, who's not seeking re-election, Rahm Emanuel. You two are the scum of the earth. You sat on this for 400 days. This happened in late 2014. You sat on this for 400 days. It was only when a judge said that the video must become public, that's when the charges were announced against Officer Jason Van Dyke. So again, both of you can go to hell. You have proven that you could care less about human life. You could care less about doing the right thing. You're the scum of the earth. So anyway, okay, so let's, in other news today, other big news, the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation hearings and this whole saga that's been going on. Recently, of course, we talked about how Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, she testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee. She told the committee about 36 years ago when Brett Kavanaugh assaulted her. She told her tale. She looked incredibly credible. And at the end of that hearing, it was because of the Republican Senator Jeff Flake. He agreed to a 1-week pause. A 1-week pause so that the FBI could initiate some investigation. They could reopen the investigation into Brett Kavanaugh. And from from the rhetoric, it seemed like it was to arrive at the truth, to either prove or disprove the allegations. Well, that didn't happen, because today is Friday, and today marks a week from that date, and an investigation really wasn't performed. It was limited in its scope. Multiple people were not even interviewed by the FBI. Dr. Ford was not interviewed by the FBI. Brett Kavanaugh was not interviewed by the FBI. I don't believe even Mark Judge, his friend, was interviewed by the FBI. Also, Christine Blasey Ford, she talked about Mark Judge's employment at a Safeway and how she had saw him about 6 to 8 weeks after the event. The FBI didn't even look at the employment records of Mark Judge concerning that Safeway. So this was a half-ass investigation. It really wasn't an investigation. All this was this was for appearances. This was all for show. This was all to just press the pause button so that Senator Jeff Flake and whoever else would feel more comfortable with the process and feel like it wasn't just being just rushed through. So today, they actually did hold the vote, a procedural vote, to determine if this was going to go to a full vote on the Senate floor. And all eyes were on a few different senators. And of course, that was Jeff Flake. Of course, that was Senator Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, Senator Susan Collins from Maine, and Democratic Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia. So, in a surprise to me, it was Senator Murkowski that voted no to this procedural hearing, to this procedural vote. And the other three, they voted yes. Now, it doesn't mean that, or it didn't mean, because this is long gone now, it didn't mean that they had to vote the same way when it actually got to the floor vote, which is expected to occur tomorrow on Saturday, so probably sometime in the afternoon. But it was likely that they wouldn't change their vote. It doesn't happen often that they would change their vote. So around 3 o'clock today, 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Senator Susan Collins, which was viewed as the linchpin, viewed as the one that was going to indicate whether this confirmation was actually going to go through or not, she spoke on the floor of the Senate, and she indicated that she is going to be supporting Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation. And so just minutes after that, Senator Joe Manchin, he put out a statement. I believe this was on Twitter, and he also indicated that he is going to support Judge Brett Kavanaugh for the Supreme Court. So with that, the Republicans have the votes that they need, and this confirmation looks like it will be approved. It will go through probably with a vote of 51 to 49. So this is incredibly disappointing. I believe it's an atrocity. I will say that the Republican Party is extremely consistent. I saw this happening. Even with the allegations against Brett Kavanaugh, the Republican Party did not seem to care not one bit. They did not seem to take sexual assault very seriously. It just seemed like job number one was confirming their guy. It's not like they could have actually voted on another conservative nominee. No. This had to be the guy. He's the guy. So again, they're incredibly consistent. I don't believe they actually represent the people, but I don't think that's news to anybody really that's been paying attention. This will presumably have a drastic effect on the landscape of this country in the decades to come. The outgoing or the already gone Justice Kennedy was the swing vote on many cases, many landmark cases. And so for that position to now go to a GOP operative, which Brett Kavanaugh surely is, and a conservative, again, presumably this will swing the country a hard right. And so that's a very unfortunate thing to realize. But that's reality at this point. So I think what people need to do, what people really need to be aware of, I think people need to be upset. People need to be upset about the way this whole thing was handled. People need to be upset that our elected officials, our elected representatives, do not really seem to have the best interests of the majority of its people in mind. So with that, let that anger guide you. Let that anger propel you to vote, to get involved. Let that anger propel you to get informed, to stay informed, to stay involved in our politics. And not just when it comes to national races. I'm talking about local, state, federal. I'm talking about the whole thing. Every single vote in every single election is key. Now, I know we all are not going to think the same way. We all don't have the same ideology. And that's totally that's totally okay. But I think throughout the history of this country, as anybody can tell, things always move to the left. Things always move progressively. Now, there's always an effort to at least slow it down or to stop it dead in its tracks. There's always that effort. But throughout time, again, still, incrementally, it does move in a progressive direction. With this administration, the Trump administration, we see an effort to aggressively enact a regressive approach. Hence the Make America Great Again, MAGA. So, again, the only thing that we can do as citizens of this country is to be involved. Midterms are coming up very soon. This is October. It's just next month. Get involved. Stay involved. Let your voice be heard. Because, again, there's an effort to really change the dynamics of this country. And we can't just sit back and let that happen. We have to engage ourselves in this process. We have to be involved. We have to make sure that what's best for us, for what's best for the majority of us, is actually accomplished. And the way this whole thing works is that's through politics. That's through your vote. So please tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell your families, just tell your coworkers, tell everybody to please get involved, stay involved, and cast that ballot on every single election. All right. So until next time, this is Will Gaylord with LTNB. Please, leave a comment, like this video, share this video, and I'll see you soon.